Hi, Amy. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled. We always kick off the podcast with the intro question of how do you, Amy, keep yourself well?
Oh, you give me a zinger right off the bat.
It's
Well,
all it's all
uh,
downhill from here, though.
okay. I it is definitely a conscious decision and something that I work on all the time because these things don't happen by accident. So, physically, I take dance classes, and I it feeds my soul. I love that kind of stuff. It's so much fun. So that's my physical. I have a physical job, so that keeps me on my toes, literally. And then for other aspects like my mental health, I have a therapist, so that's the big one. And then during the day, I have just little tricks that I use to because I'm extremely busy all the time, but I think of things in chunks, and as long as I can get through, say, a 3-day chunk this week or a 2-day or whatever, then I have this little bit of time that I can do whatever I want. And that actually is it's soothing to think of it like that because there is an end to it. And that's my way of knowing that this isn't forever. And then for other parts, I'm not like a spiritual person per se. I've tried all sorts of spiritual activities, like everyone's tried to get me to do yoga. It's not my jam. I um I sew, I make my own clothes, and so that's my like meditation and yoga and keeps me grounded and so not exactly spiritual, but it does fill that void.
But the mindfulness and kind of repetition of it, oh, that's incredible. Good for you. And
Thank you.
I love that you dance and that kind of ticks a couple different boxes, like fills your cup
Mhm.
and you moving. What kind of dance do you do?
I do burlesque and street jazz and heels dancing.
Fun. Oh, how fun. I commend you. I watched Instagram videos being like, yeah, and it's so performative, which I'm sure
Yes.
I mean, I feel like it could feel a little spiritual almost, like you kind of let to get out of your own mind and into your body in that different way. Well, I better be careful. I feel like people might disagree that burlesque is spiritual, but you're in your body and you're depends on the person.
Well, but I've never taken burlesque dance before. And so I was just kind of, oh, what is this? And it's not only allowed, so to speak, but it's encouraged to think of your body in a different way and to express it. And the costumes are fairly scanty. So, I've never had any kind of outlet for I describe myself sometimes as a potato, and before anyone goes, "Oh, no, 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 don't talk about yourself like that." Potatoes are awesome. Potatoes make fries and vodka, and they survive a winter in a cellar. They don't require maintenance. They're unsung heroes. They're not exactly glamorous. You don't put them on the covers of magazines, but the um you, you could be a potato every day, but sometimes you just want to be like the fries or take that potato and make her into something more. And so having an outlet for myself that lets me do my hair, even things like that is huge. It's huge. And I take these sessions where we have performance parts where we actually have like a dance recital. We call them showcases for grown-ups, not a dance recital. And uh, you get to be with this group of women and plan your costume and the music and all of this. And I've never had that as an adult before. So lots of facets to it.
Yes. Well, so many like the female connection, kind of having an outlet for sensuality and sexuality and
Mhm.
creativity and play. Do you have like an alter burlesque ego?
Not exactly, but now that you say it, I'm going to like. develop one because I think that that is you can bring her out and then she can go, while I have business meetings, she doesn't have to come out. I like that idea. Uh, but but that alter ego wears like thong-based bodysuits and rhinestone tights. So,
Oh my God, I love.
she's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yes. Well, she is pretty awesome. Okay. And I mean, so much of what we have to talk about, obviously, you mentioned your work, like, you're go, go, go all the time. And I know that you did not always plan to be in the culinary industry. So I'm so interested to talk. I love learning about how people found their path in life when it just took a sharp right. So
Mhm.
apparently started with a bundt cake, which I feel like people may also not think is super glamorous. I want to know more about that and how you went from studying geology, rocks for jocks. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm allowed to say that my sister-in-law is a geologist, and to becoming a chef and having your own culinary business.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know where to I look back on that now and I'm like, that was crazy. That's so weird. Who does this kind of stuff? But really it was calling and I don't like to use that too much because I feel it's overused. But anyway, I'm just in university, I'm in the thick of it. All my classes had lab classes. So I'm taking like pretty much double the workload and it's year three and things are getting serious. And so I don't know, I was on my summer off there and I was at Shoppers Drug Mart and this cake just like through the rest of the magazines. It was on the front cover of this cooking magazine, and my hand just reached out and grabbed it. I'm like, that looks amazing. And I still remember the feeling of looking at this and opening the pages, and it is a cooking magazine. How could that be so transformative? But it was, and each page had something new and different and things I'd never tried before. And I bought this. I made every recipe in it, and that was it. And like it was just I made this, and that it was always something I loved to work with my hands when I was growing up. I made crafts and like little girl cutie project things, and so I had made food, and like so it was awesome. And then I ate it, and it tasted awesome, and it's just like, where is this coming from? And then I go to school and I do these things, and I come home and cook, and I do um, buy all these ingredients I never worked with before. And so I said to my mom one time, I think I want to be like drop out of school and be a chef. And she lost her mind. She's like, "Are you nuts? This is you're in year three. Like you can't stop now. You'll always regret it." And I think she's right. Like that was good advice. And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're right, you're right." So I finished my degree and I moved to Calgary, where oil and gas was, well, still is, where geologists go. And I worked in the industry, not exactly where I wanted to be at the time, but I worked in the industry. And then fate, the place I was working, moved to Texas. So rather than move to Texas or just find another job, I took the severance and I went to cooking school in Calgary. And yeah, with the with the encouragement of my parents, and which is great too, because they were initially the ones who were like, "Well, what do you no. So it was a bit of a 180 going from a rigid science and very documented and uh, details and study and then I'm in cooking school and I'm one of the oldest in my class. I was 26 at the time, and I put on because we had to wear chef jackets and full chef outfits every day at school. I remember trying it on, like this feels right. This is what I was supposed to do. And I'm that older student in the front row, just like, yep, yes, teacher. Yes, teacher. I know the answer, teacher. And, and I did this and I went through my internship and everything was just what it was supposed to be. And then I moved back to Regina I was home well, I worked in some jobs here. And a year after getting back, I started my first company. So that was catering. I still am doing catering. In November will be 18 years that I started that company. And then 5 years after that, I started a restaurant. And then 3 years after that, a cooking school. And all three of them are still in operation.
Okay. Wow. Congratulations. That's huge. Okay, well, I have a marketing degree and it's been a while since I finished that, but I feel like the average restaurant lasts for 3 years is the statistic that we heard at the time. So for anyone who doesn't know that, that alone is an accomplishment worth its weight in gold, let alone two businesses on top of that. So I hope you have this food magazine framed somewhere in your house. Like how incredible
I
that you,
still have it. Yeah.
what a
Yeah. And it
sign.
survived a flood. Our basement filled with water. And so it's not in good shape. And so I taped it together. But it feels too important
Yeah,
to get rid of. Yeah.
symbolic. And so how long after you graduated geology to when you started cooking school?
4 years.
Well, I mean, that's a good way to prove to your parents. I mean, you were still so passionate about it and ready to do it. And did you feel like you were fighting this pull the whole time you were working in oil and gas?
I did actually. And I tried to push it away because I invested all this time, effort, and money into this. I made a big move to another province to work in that field. And it wasn't quite at the time where people left careers, went and did something
Hmm.
totally different. We were on the cusp of it. And now it's like that's kind of a given. You don't necessarily do what you went to school for. It wasn't as common, I should say. So I'm definitely not a pioneer or anything in that regard, but didn't I thought maybe this is what working life is like because I'd never really worked full time only. I mean, I'd have jobs in the summer, but okay, this is what you do until you're 65 and then you retire and then you can have your life. I knew of more people that didn't love their jobs than did. And so the what was happening in my head was like, this is just what you do. I'm a grown up now. Sing as a mortgage, I guess.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're shouting this from the rooftops so that people can know there's that option, you know? And I always, when I talk about this, I try to preface like, yeah, it's a privilege. I get like to get to that point where you find something you really love, but just sharing stories of people who have found that thing. And, I think fear though, like all of the good stuff comes on the other side of fear, and that fear you had, your parents had for you, which I think especially that, slightly older generation for sure was not seeing the like leaving a secure job that you'd had a degree in. So, embracing the fear and just taking that jump, you would never know how good it was going to get, which is incredible.
Right. Yeah.
uh
And
no, no, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I had a chef in cooking school who said, if she knew what industry I'd come from, and she said, Amy, you're so brave. You're so brave. And I was like, what? I'm brave? What? And then later on, I'm like, oh yeah, I went from the oil industry to minimum wage in the span of a summer. And so if it was, yeah, holy cow. If I would have actually thought about it, like I probably would have had a panic attack, but I didn't because I just knew that it's just, this is where I'm supposed to be. And fear is such a crippling emotion in it. And I think so many things are led by fear. And so I'm glad I kind of ignored that, or I blacked out for those few years. I didn't think too much about it.
But I just think when you're really passionate about something, you just know. Also, I am like cringing that you felt old in class at 26. I'm currently 33 and
I
by
know.
far the oldest in my master's degree. And every day I'm just reminded so humbly. Luckily, it's online, so I don't have to come face to face with it very often. But I'm like, oh, I feel like your mother most of the time. Okay, so tell me about the cooking school. That's the newest part of this venture.
Mhm. Yeah, it's already 10 years old. But it is the latest of it. Actually, I opened a couple of restaurants right before and during the pandemic. So that I try not to count. So I have, yeah, two of them that opened and closed. But so yes, the one that's still going, that's the latest, is the school. And what I wanted to do was create a space where people could get together over the creation of food. We have not only normalized but ingrained in ourselves eating together as a social activity and families and all of this, but we didn't we don't get together and make it so much and then eat it. Or maybe just a few people do, but this is more of a widespread thing. And people who don't know each other might be at the same table. So I wanted that kind of different, almost in some ways an experiment too, because I thought it was kind of neat to bring different people together and in the form of this school where, so for example, tonight okay, bad example. We teach kids from inner city. We have a program that we teach them just different skills too. So that's today. But like say, for example, last night was dim sum. Then we had a dessert cooking class on Monday, and we have a Mediterranean date night on Friday.
Oh,
So a
yeah.
little bit everything, but getting together and learning some skills and most of all having fun. So the menu is start to finish 3 hours, including eating. And we provide all the ingredients and teach them how to make it. They make it, enjoy it, and then go home. So it doesn't require too much commitment. It is fun and social and a creative outlet. And I get surprised all the time at uh, the people I see, the least like on paper, the least likely to be a good cook, perhaps. And it's just that is I, I talk about my businesses being my kids, and I have a favorite kid, and it is Schoolhouse, the cooking school.
Well, that must be like, you must not only have to be so passionate about food, but also so passionate about people and wanting to have that connection. I mean, it's such a big part of food. And I'm currently living in Nicaragua and observing different cultures with cuisine is so interesting because here it's very much you cook together, you eat together, some of it out of
Mhm.
necessity because families don't have a lot. So everyone has to bring things together. But there's just this way deeper sense of connection. And something that I've noticed is that to be a part of that, I have to slow down and not do what I do in Canada, which is like, I don't have time. So I love cooking, but I never give myself permission to make time for it. So I'm like, I'm just going to go, 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 whatever's quick, like get it in. And the other night we made supper as a family. It took 3 hours by the time we'd started, and it was nothing like spectacular, but it's just experiential and it's slow. And I had to just step back and be like, okay, but the value that I'm getting from this is so great. Like the work can wait. There's going
Mhm.
to be time for it. And I think that's maybe one of the beautiful things that we've really lost with our kind of go, go, go lifestyle. People aren't
Mhm.
making time for cooking, let alone sitting down to eat as a family. So this gives such a great opportunity to kind of make that space for it.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're still around. There's maybe even if you can't put a name to it or describe it, there's a feeling that you get when you do come together and have this kind of experience. And are you going to be a chef after this? No. Are you going to get some tips and tricks and funny stories of like I always tell stories of like the stupid stuff I've done or mistakes I've made and hopefully that has made their failures seem less drastic because if I can do it after 20 years as a professional chef then it's great for them. So um we keep it light always. It is a fun time and yeah, I'm hoping that that changes the way that they think of cooking and it's less drudgery and a necessity and oh, what's for supper and turn it into something different.
Well, do you hear a lot of people say like, oh, I can't cook? I'm always blown away when someone says like, oh, I can't cook because I'm like, there's a thing called a recipe. And what you do is just step by step. I think it's like kind of choosing not to know how to cook. But again, I think something like culturally, if it was not passed down, like you didn't have anyone teaching you, it could be
Mhm.
really intimidating. So you being a place to learn that, do you offer like ongoing courses as well where someone could learn to have a good culinary toolbox?
Yeah, we've kind of stopped them right now just because we're in recovery mode from the pandemic and people's schedules are different and we're still coming back on some scheduling things, but we have something called Modern Home Cook 101 and it's 10 weeks and we start with knife skills. And I think knife skills are like the gateway skill. And we build on that and there's cold foods and hot foods and breakfast and different things. And it is quite a detour from what I learned in cooking school, which is classic French cuisine, like cooking and fancy sauces and very heavy things. So we still get the techniques in this one that we do, but it's more of a modern lifestyle that it takes the form in of. And so there's that. And then we have 201, 301, 401, and each one is a different type of skill set. And then I just ran out of university-based numbers, but we have a different like skill-based and technique-based one-off classes. But we do a science of food one, which brings part of my background in and the why of cooking, not just the how. And we talk about eggs and the use of leaveners and different things. And if you can get that going, then you can understand that. And that's why it's a more advanced one for people who want to delve a little deeper. So and those are very, very popular. I also during the pandemic did Zoom classes on just an hour and a half, and I'd send them menus and shopping lists, and we'd cook together. And I have over 100 of those written because the pandemic lasted longer than I thought, and I kept doing them. And then people wouldn't let me stop doing them. I have one on Sunday. Like they're just so popular with people. And I learned that it's an accessibility thing. And that has always been something that I've didn't know. There's a bit of elitism in cooking, which I admit I dabbled in not knowing. There's some ableism. There's lots of stuff. So for our virtual ones, people from all over Canada take them. Rural people who are technically close-ish by, but they're not going to drive 3 hours for a class and then drive home after. Childcare needs, social anxiety, extreme allergies, where they really need to have a clean space for that, but still want to join in. And I Wow. Cost. It's a third of the cost of our in-person ones, and they can access their own ingredients. And so that's been my one journey in doing this and learning about how other people cook and into their lives because you have an idea yourself about things, but it's as I learned, not everyone's situation.
Well, and how incredible to find kind of the silver lining in the pandemic that it opened this avenue or gently forced you to this avenue that now is something that you can continue. And I really think, that's the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur. You've been forced to pivot. And because you're working in this creative field where like that creativity hat obviously is on all the time, you are able to problem solve, which is incredible. And not all industries were able to do that, especially food, so to have a way that you can keep your business going, I mean, is incredible. I would love to know, what do you find is the biggest hurdle for people in the kitchen? Like, is it a mental thing? Is it a generational thing? Like, because I really do feel like most people can cook if they take the time to learn. But what do you feel like the barriers are? I die every time I see like clips from that Worst Cooks in America show. I'm like, it's like they have to be trying to be that bad. Come on. Like, nobody.
I think so too. And I found it's almost like doing a study from what all the people we've seen come through our space. So some are um, putting it on in front of their friends or family because that's how they're known as like this disastrous cook or whatever, and they just went with it. It's now part of their personality. I think sometimes people need permission, so to speak, to go outside of the recipe, and that's really what I do. Is okay, look at it. It's a guideline, not a straitjacket. And it's
Love
like,
that.
oh, I can do this? That's cool. I didn't know I could go off script like this. Oh, okay. In some cases, sure. Not with baking, but in cooking. And so it's like a whole new world has opened up to them because they thought this is the way it is. And For example, I had one of those moments too. I saw a recipe for random meatballs where you just take the meat and you kind of squish it and you put it in the pan or you put it on and put it in the oven. You don't have to roll them. And then I'm like, you don't have to roll meatballs? What kind of world are we in? Why not? They're quick, easy, and they look kind of cool and interesting. So there's an example of me just following a recipe and not questioning it. So there's that. There's also a generational thing. If your parents didn't cook, and it's not part of your heritage or your family's ethos, like that's not how they're known. Because they maybe had that same kind of um personality within their family, so they don't get it. And some people are in their 30s, they come through and they're like, I don't know, I've never done this. And I said, how do you, when I'm feeling a little cheeky, or what do you eat? Or how do you eat? And they're like, oh, sort of like usually takeout or things that are in boxes or cans, and I just heat up. And it's like, oh my gosh, well, I'm glad you're here. I'll just say kind of lightly, I'm glad you're here. We can start now. And people actually, the other thing too is they're very, very modest and they're like, oh, I can't cook. And I said, you are a better cook than you think you are. And I've never even seen them cook. I just know that they're saying that. Yeah, okay, compared to others, sure. But maybe in their own right, they are just fine. And they feed their children very well. And they're just being I don't know, maybe Canadian or something. They're just saying, no, 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 I'm just average.
Yeah.
Okay, well, average is fine.
Yeah. I was just thinking like some people, I wonder if it's almost weaponized incompetence. They're like, no, I can't cook. Like, I guess you have to do it for me. But I think about some of these things that have been marketed to us almost as solutions, I think are detrimental to like passing these skills on or being forced to develop them, like skip the dishes and
Hmm.
the like HelloFresh and the meal prep boxes. I think that's a great option, the meal prep boxes, but you know, that could just get someone maybe dip their toes into it and then start
Hmm.
building those skills. Did you have cooking skills growing up? Like, did you cook in your family, or was it really not until the day that you like picked up that magazine you started experimenting?
Yeah, and I didn't have those skills. I mean, I grew up around it. My grandmas and both my grandmas are amazing cooks, but my mom's mom is exceptionally gifted as a cook, and she also is quite entrepreneurial. She died in her 90s, and I think if she was in the time and place where I am, she would have done the same thing. She's a farm wife and four kids and a huge garden and everything, and still managed everything to preserve and cook and all of this. Very hardworking woman. And so her mom or her daughter, my mom, is a very good cook. And in fact, worked for me for a bunch of years too later on. She's now retired. But in that environment, I kind of got in the way, and so did my brother and sister. And so we didn't really have too many hands-on skills. It was happening around us, but we weren't involved in it. And then I get to university and where's my supper? Like, I'm living on my own. There's no supper made for me. Come on. Oh, I have to do this myself. Okay. So I kind of started from scratch and I bought all these, like, I don't know, meal or noodle packet things and um, really just powdered cream sauces. I think back now, oh dear. And oh yes, frozen pot pies that were $1.
Hmm.
Yeah, so lots of nutritional value in $1 item. Anyway, I started gaining weight, and so for me, it was more of a vanity thing. Like, oh my gosh, okay, I've got to get serious about this. I was 19, and that's not cool. I didn't want the freshman 15 and all this. So anyway, I started cooking, and this was before finding that magazine, but I started cooking different things from what I remember, and it started getting better and better. Okay, great. Now I can feed myself. That was my motivation at first, and then the feeling of accomplishment took over, and the feeling of independence and being like, oh, I'm an adult now. This is pretty cool. This is what you do.
Good for you. I mean, I think that I know a lot of adults who in university were living off Vector cereal, not to
Oh,
name names or other things. But Well, I think you make a good point, though. I think a lot of the reason maybe people are relying on these packaged products is because they perceive it to be cheaper. I work in nutrition, so
Mm.
I do not believe that is the case. And again, trying to mark my privilege, obviously, I am food secure, which is very lucky. But, I do think that we can stretch our dollar further than we may think when it comes to cooking. So, how do you respond to that kind of assumption that cooking is expensive? Obviously, maybe like French classic cuisine may be more expensive, especially to get those ingredients in Saskatchewan. But, do you think that's a barrier for some people? And do you believe that's true, that it's more expensive to cook that for yourself than it is to grab the frozen pot pie? Or I'm thinking of what's the Michelina's frozen
Oh yes,
dinners?
those
Those
pasta
were
things.
those were
Yes,
a high school university go to. And I
absolutely. And I think they're on sale way too often than they should be. So you even got them cheaper. Yeah. Yeah, d- in the pandemic too, I think that was a great humbling. And I'm not one of those, I'm not like some chefs can have a very large ego. I definitely don't think I'm one of those. I'm from a small town like farming background. I would be my place quite quickly. However, on some level, yes, my privilege, my food security, like you mentioned, has made my worldview different. And using those I created menus based on that, and assumed people had ovens, and we're learning now not everyone has an oven in their home. So, uh, or all the other thing we learned in the pandemic is not like our food supply was sometimes not there because there were no drivers or the crops or whatever, and so we didn't have access to some of the things that we took for granted, and we uh, I started following a nutrition blogger who talks about food security and uh, elitism in food and in the chef world, and how some people, um, yeah, there's some shaming going on. Anyway, I like frozen things. I like canned things, and it's taken me a long time to get over that because that's what say the Food Network is, fresh, or you watch any of the Gordon Ramsay like kitchen nightmares and all of this. Why are you using frozen product? That puts in your head that fresh is better. But if it's not accessible or it's in poor quality or crazy expensive, what else do you have, And I'm doing a class right now called High Low, and it is using like canned tuna and dried pasta and all of these things. And we get the other thing I used last week was canned lobster. So we have this high ingredient, and then we have like a can or like a 99-cent bag of dried pasta, and we can do that, and that's how I'm kind of dabbling in it and taking these little baby steps into things that are more accessible and not feeling shame over it because of my background, my training, everything bombards me with this the high end, the best of the best, and the French style butter and all of this stuff, which is $8. And um I it's been very humbling for me to think of things like this and still feel like I am a professional in the food industry.
Mm.
But this is where we're at in our world with yeah, food security. You look at the homelessness situation, all of these things, and the rising cost of stuff. And there are more people who are just on the fringes of going that way, that are indeed going that way, and having it not what we do as in the cooking school and in the food world, not having them as customers anymore. And there's another push to get on board with not having those kinds of attitudes anymore.
I love that. Well, and because especially with the cooking school, there's the restaurant side of things where, people come to be provided for, but the cooking school where they're learning how to provide for themselves a little bit more. I mean, what an
Mhm.
empowering skill to teach how to use a range of ingredients and, what people are eating around here. That's amazing. And okay, so I'm curious because I love food. There was a time in my life where I'm like was obsessed with, well, I'll tell you the time. I was a professional bodybuilder and I couldn't eat anything, so all I did was watch Food Network all day. Um And I once convinced myself that like I wanted to go to pastry school. I'm now a ketogenic nutritionist, so I don't even eat most of what you would make with pastry, but I just love the like I love the art and science of pastry. But I've thought so
Hmm.
much about how I think, professional chefs have, especially in catering, have one of the hardest jobs in the world because you are serving everyone else at the times where they're having the most fun and the times that you eat meals and share meals and socialize, meaning you are not doing those things because you are serving the people that are doing those things, and then end up getting home late, and you maybe don't eat for yourself or make something quick. So do you, well, maybe this is a stereotype, do you make time to cook for yourself every day? Maybe because you're doing the classes, it's a double bonus because you got to cook anyway and you get to have something, or is it like grabbing something quick at the end of the day and you think of yourself last?
Oh, 100%. It is think of yourself last. Like I ordered pizza yesterday. I was just done. I got up at 4. I worked 12 hours. I came home and had a nap, and then I ordered pizza. And it does it at times feel shameful. Like I come home and have cereal for supper or popcorn or whatever when I just made someone, this chia pudding for breakfast and these burritos and all. Like that was my day yesterday, and I made all this great stuff. And then the shoemaker's kids, right? I don't have shoes. So I have these pangs of it, but it is that stereotype is true for a lot of chefs, a lot. And so I really enjoy the house guests, we call them, classes, our virtual classes, because I get to eat what I make, and I so rarely get to eat what I make. In fact, I a lot of times eat in my car, going to different places because that's the only time I can eat. And I have my car water. I have a case of water in my car because I oftentimes don't drink enough water. Okay, not oftentimes, all the time. It is a chronic problem for me. So having I get fancy Perriers because then it's a treat and I can drink water, lights and things like that. Um, and it they said in the first week of cooking school, you are going to change your relationship with food by being here, and you will gain weight, you will lose weight, you will have things that disgust you, that you'll have things that you love, and it'll change it. So if you are here purely because you love food, hate to tell you, but it's going to be a relationship for you the whole time you're here. And in fact, during cooking school, each of the classes was 3 weeks long. So you'd have 3 weeks of meat, cutting, cooking, all of this, 3 weeks of pastry, 3 weeks of vegetables, 3 weeks of pasta, etc. And during the meat class, where we're cooking meat all day long, I could not swallow food. It was disgusting to me because of all it's like it's all over. You smell like lamb. I had ground meat. We cooked a cow tongue one day. We cooked frog's legs. We cooked all of this meat under my nails. I worked at a spa back then, and I went to work with meat under my nails, and I thought I'm gonna get fired for coming to work like this. I probably smelled too. So I lost 8 pounds in 3 weeks because I could not eat, and I had to buy meal replacement shakes. So I wouldn't like faint from hunger because I was not getting. Actually, I wasn't hungry, but I needed some kind of nutrients, and I had to drink like Ensure because it absolutely changed the way I looked at food for those full 3 weeks. After that was pastries, and oh my gosh, the sugar was insane because you could try what you made, and I just craved a steak. So there's a big psychological shift, and it can actually just it's more like a roller coaster of emotions and feelings and cravings and all sorts of associations too now that I have with food because of this cooking school immersive experience.
Well, I mean, I feel like that does teach you a lot about balance, like you don't need too
Mhm.
much tea, you don't need too much pastry, somewhere in between. So, what are your favorite things to cook for yourself now? And do you make time to just cook for yourself when you're done these kind of blocks of go, go, go? Or are you
Yeah.
totally over it at that point?
No, like I don't go full in like I would at work. I feel like I don't need to. And my husband is a very like simple eater, so I don't have to like quote unquote quote impress him because he does like he is married to a professional chef. Uh, so he's just fine with whatever. He would eat like mac and cheese his whole life if he could. He doesn't care. So I a lot of times make breakfast for any meal. I love breakfast and eggs go to. I also love making pad thai or anything in one pot that's very satisfying. I love carbs. Sorry. I love all sorts of
Judgment.
um
Everybody loves carbs. I say I love carbs. They don't love me back. That's the issue, right? So no judgment.
pasta is a go-to. And I do keep it simple, but I still love to cook at home too. I just don't go all in. And
Yeah.
I think that's good. Like, because I don't need to take that feeling and that uh, environment at work and bring it to my home space. Yeah, I joke because I have been cooking from home for these classes and I don't have the equipment that I need to make these things. Like I had a mishmash of measuring spoons and cups. And then literally last week I bought a full set that had all of them in it. And I said, "Hey everyone," because I would joke about it. It was a running joke. I didn't have a rolling pin, so I used a wine bottle one time, and it's been kind of embarrassing, extremely humbling. But every on the Zoom, you could see people clapping for me.
But I think it's
But
because it shows an example of like you don't need a rolling pin. You can use a wine bottle. You can eyeball, except for the pastry, maybe. Like, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I said to them too, this is great because on my or like using a microplane to zest a lemon. I don't have one of those at home, but I have a cheese grater. And I said, guys, did you know on the back of the cheese grater is like it's something you can use the zest, put on the zest? And they're like, well, yeah, of course I did. And I said, oh, I have these specialized little gadgets and appliances, but there are so many things that I didn't think of in my own home space. Yeah, this works. What am I doing? And again, humbling for sure, and super relatable because if someone who can do this for as a profession still doesn't, you can make things work. And I think that's what we've been doing for the last 4 years is just make it work.
Yeah.
And that is so satisfying.
Yes. And so what is your favorite thing to cook for other people?
Oh, I like to impress. Like that's how I show love and actually my whole family is like that. Very stoic, old world kind of people. And so we didn't hug. We didn't like do any like we weren't like that, but they would cook the most amazing meals for you. And so that's I've inherited that and um I like making more elaborate things. I love cooking fish. Salmon is one of my dinner party go-tos, and salads. Like actually, my favorite thing of all time to make is soup. And people think that's kind of a boring answer, but I think soup is magic. And you take things that you wouldn't maybe would be even thrown away, and you can make a stock with it and all that, and then you make soup, and you can do so much with just that. I could eat soup every meal. Anyways.
Me too. When I tell you soup is my favorite food, I'm like, because there's just endless options. Okay, I love that. And what would you recommend, like bringing it to basics, where we're trying to get people into the kitchen? What are like the handful of go-to recipes or foods that you think are a good starting point for people to conquer in the kitchen?
I like things that are so recently I started in sheet pan journey. So it's not necessarily a recipe, but it has a technique where you put everything on one pan and you just put it in the oven and it comes out. And I said to my students, I'm like, I'm late to this game. It's been around for it's nothing. I didn't invent it, that's for sure. And it's just like, what the heck? You get these great flavors and on so many different things. And it's usually cooked at a higher temperature. So you get some caramelization on, and it's one pan. Can you believe it, guys? One pan. So I like those kinds of things or one pot. So it keeps it simple and it keeps it contained, and you don't have to manage different burners and what's happening here and there. I like things that have five or fewer ingredients. I
Oh,
do this most amazing um, pasta sauce where it is tomatoes, half an onion, and a quarter cup of butter, and you just let it cook. Cook it down, and then you use a hand blender to blend it all up, and it's the best pasta sauce you'll ever have. And salt and pepper if you want. Wow, just spectacular. It is three ingredients, and then you can go from there and build from there. So, I actually grew tomatoes the last couple of years here, and I'm the worst gardener ever, but I'm trying. I'm trying, and that's what I made. All my tomatoes went to sauce.
Well, how
So if you can find,
satisfying.
yeah, it's amazing, and it's I if you're in the food world, it's like a viral type of recipe, and you'll find it pretty quick when you Google it, and it's just like if I describe it, people are like, oh, that's so and so's recipe. I know it. I know it. And I'm like, I not know about this. This is why didn't you tell me? So I also have things like um let's see. So that's the pasta one. I like a lot of I do a lot of pasta, I noticed. Yes. There's so many different things you can do with that, the types of sauce and keeping it simple. And uh, I like unfussy things too. Just maybe a pork tenderloin. You can do so much with that, and it's fairly cheap compared to other proteins. So I don't have a go-to list, but I have some ingredients that I really like to use.
And yeah, I mean, and I think that again, it brings the barriers down where it's like quick, it's easy, it's efficient, it's affordable. I work with almost all moms and we
Mhm.
are always doing recipes, meal plans, and one pot, one pan meals are always like the most requested, recommended, of course. I am just gonna walk and talk with you for 1 minute to get
Sure.
out of the way. And I would love to know what you think about things like Instant Pot, air fryer. Like, I feel like there's all of these extra gadgets. I am kind of anal in that I hate anything on my counter, so I refuse to buy an Instant Pot. I refused for so long to get an air fryer, and then I eventually broke down just for the sake of my clients more than anything else. Do you like those trends because they bring the barriers down, or do you feel like it's stick with the basics, like a good sauce pot is all you need?
That's funny you say that because one of my cooks at work loves Instant Pots and air fryers, and I just refuse. I called myself old school or traditionalist or whatever. It's basically code for stubborn. And I too don't like extra things. I don't like when there's like for example, a garlic press only has one job and that's it. And it takes up space in your drawer and everything when you can use a knife and smash it and then cut it up. So I had that kind of mentality. And until I had an Instant Pot. And today we were talking about that because we used it. It was because I like a slow cooker. I think things are better like that. And then my cook says, "Well, it's done in 2 hours. Why can't we just use the Instant Pot?" I'm like, "Okay, fine, fine, fine." So that happened today, actually, because I forgot to put it in the slow cooker last night, and then we had to use it. And then he always jokes, "See, look at it, it's just as good." It's just as good. You're so traditional. And I'm like, no, no, no. I've come around to an Instant Pot. I just can't get my head around air fryer. And he's like, oh, you'll find that you love it too. And I said, give me time. We joke, give me time. I'm old school. And but yeah, I think if it saves you time, which is our currency these days, then yes, absolutely use that kind of stuff. I don't like things that are limiting in nature. Like again, the garlic press example. But if you could, people tell me all the time, "Oh, I do this and this in my air fryer. Or I do this. Did you know you could do this in your air fryer?" And I say, "No, I don't actually, because I don't have one." And they say, "Well, how can you not have an air fryer?" I I just don't. That part of that too is fear that I will not use it properly and bring embarrassment upon myself that this professional chef cannot use this cooking gadget. How dare you? Uh, so I think I mask it as being traditional or old school,
Oh,
but really there are things where, oh, I didn't know that. Now I feel how can I teach it if I didn't know it in the first place? But yeah, so many. My sister has one, my mom has one. All these they make these things. I'm like, this is great, and they're like air fryer.
They're gonna convince you. Oh, amazing. And I would love to change lanes a little bit and shift into like entrepreneurship. Um, because I have heard that you are, also supporting others in entrepreneurship and advising, especially women. So first of all, I don't know how you make time for all of this, but I think that's incredible. And what advice or recommendation can you give when it comes to the world of entrepreneurship?
Oh goodness. Do we have another hour?
We'll do a second episode one
Yeah,
day.
yeah, there's so much. Like so I've been doing this 18 years, and I even took classes before I got into it. So I feel like I've been on this journey a really long time. I took like macroeconomics and business law and those kinds of things ahead of time. So I knew jumping in what I was getting into, but I be prepared for the amount of work that it is. Like I worked 12 hours yesterday, I worked 10 hours today, and I'm the boss and I have
It's
a
only
really
4
great
p.m.
staff.
It's only 4 p.m. and you already worked 10 hours.
Yeah, yes. And so you don't get to a point where you can coast. And I don't know if that is food industry specific or if it's all entrepreneurship. I only know the food industry in this regard, but uh there's always something more to do, and that's where I think the danger zone is you could work till like you're burnt out and can't get out of bed. And I this is where I developed these coping mechanisms and strategies in preventing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you work way more than you think you will. And even if you do love the work, it's still work in that way that you're not doing fun stuff or you're not being with your family. So I think people underestimate that. And I look at a lot of things that are really great, which is what I went into it for, the absolute freedom of being my own boss and not answering to anyone. And that for me is a big deal. I'm the oldest of three kids, and I was always the boss. And so for me to not be the boss and not make my own schedule and not do these things, I can't fathom it. Um, the other thing too is how lonely it can get, and making sure that I'm really not selling entrepreneurship, but I think if you're prepared and you have you have your support systems, and that you can help to stave that off, because when you are working this much, you do miss out on things, and other people might not understand your situation if they're working 9 to 5, have the weekend off, or they're like, "Oh yeah, it's Friday." I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of the start of my like I'm working all weekend, so it's Friday in name only." And um, having that um, those systems where other people are in the same situation as you as is very important, and that's why I've been in part in these. One of them is WESC, Women Entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan, and we're all in the same boat. We all have similar stories to tell, and so you have that kinship with them, and finding that was uh, a real well like a life support.
I think that's great advice, to be realistic about it, that it's going to be hard and there are pros and cons and it's balancing it and being prepared. And if someone is listening to this thinking, like I want to start my own cafe, catering, business, restaurant, any words of advice for the industry niche specific?
Yes. Well, I get asked this a lot, and I think I have like a fine-tuned an answer, and know who your customers are and know where to find them. Like, do you actually have a market for what you're selling? And if you have something in a good space and like a good um, product arrangement or um, mix, there we go. Yeah, okay, you're gonna have more success. But if you're niche and you're in a space where people have to come to you, it's going to be a lot harder. And we're just south of downtown in Regina, and so we somewhat have the market, but it's shifted. And so we've had to do other things and change marketing strategies to find those customers again, or uh, change to where we're looking for them. So if you don't have customers, you don't have a business, and that has come very top and top of mind with the pandemic, and everyone went home. and ours was the business customer. And then we had to find them again. We had to remind them where we are, who we are, what we've done for them in the past. We're still here. And that, like, the human side of things was the most important, and making sure their needs are met and their emotions are how we make them feel. So, but yeah, the human perspective. Also, things cost a lot more than you think too. And starting the business, I thought it would cost. Um, oh, this is so embarrassing now. I thought it would cost $25,000 to renovate and open a restaurant, and it did not. It cost 150. And so um, I was very naive, and I was not realistic, and I didn't know how much things cost. And now I know it's part of my story, and people are like, "Oh, how can you not?" And like, I didn't know things cost that much either. A toaster can be $800. So there are, um, I mean, we could talk about that forever, but it's knowing your customer and knowing what their needs are and how you can solve their problems.
Yeah. But you don't know until you do, you know? Okay, I'm just on that question. I'm dying to know if you've watched The Bear.
I get asked this so much, like once a week. I've watched the first two episodes and I stopped because it is so realistic and so
Traumatized.
triggering.
Oh
Yes.
no.
And
Oh my God.
especially when he feels that anxiety, his suppliers and his people not showing up, I'm like,
Oh,
oh my God, that happened today or whatever. And I'm feeling all those feelings again. And I said, this is too good. You we're very
oh
well
my God.
written, and I can't watch it.
Okay, well, that
Can't
should
watch
be
it.
a 5-star review for the show, but I can understand. Already, you don't want to take your work home and you still need to feed yourself, to also have to cook for yourself and then watch. Understanding.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
also
bear.
want to know your biggest cooking mistake, if you would so love to share with us, and
Mm.
various accidents.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'll tell you about an incident I had. This is probably, yeah, this is the most embarrassing thing I have ever done. So I'd had a cooking class for all or a bunch of home ec teachers in the province, and we hosted it, and it was knife skills. And so some people were filming it and everything, and I myself so badly that I still think about it and shake my head. So I cut myself very, very badly while doing this cooking demo. I went and put a band-aid on. Oh, it's bleeding through. Okay, put two, three, four band-aids on my finger, put a glove on my finger or my hand so I could continue on. Like, nothing happened because they're filming this. And the glove starts filling with blood.
Oh God.
And I thought, I'm just like, no, this is home ec teachers in a knife skills class. And I myself, like, how this is probably the worst thing that you could do in that particular situation. And so I was mortified. They were, these things happen, but of all the times and places and situations for that to happen, it happened there.
Oh,
And I know. So there's that.
I'm so sorry. But do you know what? I almost expect that to happen because the performance anxiety, I feel like, you know, when you watch a cooking show on TV and they zoom into someone's hands when they're chopping, I'm like, oh God, please don't cut yourself.
Yes.
And you just know it's coming. Okay, I have loved our time together so much. I want to just wrap up and get you out of the door because, like you said, you've already worked for 10 hours. I would love for you to get to relax, although I know you have a cooking class tonight. A few rapid fire
Yeah.
questions. Who is your biggest role model, culinary and otherwise?
Culinary. Oh, I enjoy Nigella Lawson. I think she's so, like, she's sultry and smart, and she likes butter and you
Yeah.
know
And she
chocolate. Yeah.
says microwave instead of
Yeah,
micro. And I really love that.
I love that too. Any female in cooking, I just admire the heck out of, like Julia Child. Oh man, she could do no wrong. Um, yeah, I think that's great. And then otherwise, it'd have to be my mom. She was in like an emotionally abusive relationship, with my dad, actually. So I had a first-hand experience of it, and she shielded us from a lot. Ended up getting breast cancer, and fought it and won, and is living her best life now, living with her grandkids out in Calgary. So and my brother and his wife, and just really thriving. So she's like the toughest person I know, and still can outcook me, circles around me any day of the week.
Oh, what a badass. And best advice
Yes.
you've ever received.
Um, hmm. My a family friend said it's better to lose than be a loser. And I'd never heard anything like that before, and it really, really made sense. It's like dropping things that I think are it's more for my ego, like for example, closing a restaurant that wasn't doing well. And I said, feels like I'm losing. And he's like, it's better to lose than be a loser.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, losing reflects you tried, right? What if you're not trying, what else? I love that. I
Yeah.
literally wrote that one down as you said it. I'm gonna keep that one. Best book or resource you'd recommend to people. And I'd love culinary and non if you have one.
Sorry, a book? Did you say?
Yeah, yeah, like book or resource.
A book. Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm bit of my science nerd coming out. There is a science of good recipes and why they work is one of them, and it tells the science behind them, and it's so cool. And I just am drawn to those kinds of things. So that's the cooking one. And the other one, I love business books too. So Good to Great is one that I really refer to quite often, the Collins.
Ooh, good recommendation. And personal mantra or words you live by.
Okay, so personally, it's take up space because I'm very tall, and sometimes I can revert back to my like 12-year-old self where I just kind of shrink. And so that's reminding me to be present and to not shrink, take up space. And then my other one, if for say I'm on hour 11 of my 12-hour day, or I don't even know how long my day is going to be, is just keep going. And that might sound a bit blasé or trite or whatever, but it really just keep going. You're going through hell, just keep going.
Love
And
it.
it's not hell, it's just a marathon.
Yes. Oh, great. And last but certainly not least, for anyone who wants to learn more about you, follow along, sign up for a class, virtual or otherwise, since as we know, we could do these classes anywhere in the world. Where can they find you?
We're at Schoolhouse Culinary Arts .ca, and Schoolhouse is spelled SCH. No, okay, yes. So my last name is Schulhauser, which is headmaster in German. So I just made it anglicized. So it's SCHOOLHAUS, Culinary Arts.
And we will link
Uh,
everything on the website so you can
yes.
find it, book a class. And I cannot thank you enough. I'm so excited to follow along and see what's next for you. And just thank you so much for making time in your very busy day.
This was so much fun, Kelly. Thank you for the best hour I've had all week.
Oh my God, what a compliment. And it's Thursday. So, I mean, I know there's no weekend in cooking, but it's close. I will let you go. Enjoy your evening and we'll talk again soon.
That sounds great. Take care.
Thank you. You